Okay, so have you heard this story about Winifred Jones?
Yeah, it's pretty awful.
A 95-year-old woman
Uh,
falls, breaks her hip, and is then left on the freezing pavement
mm,
for 5 hours.
5 hours.
Yeah, like it's just unbelievable.
It is.
Especially when you consider, I mean, her age, right?
Yeah.
95 years old.
And with a broken hip, that's gotta be excruciating.
Excruciating. And the fact that she was just left there
On the ice.
on the ice.
It really does make you wonder, doesn't it, about the state of things.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're going to be diving into today. We've got some news reports about this incident, and I think there's a lot to unpack here in terms of the bigger picture.
Yeah, definitely. There are some, systemic issues that this really highlights.
For sure. But first, let's just lay out what happened.
Okay, so.
Winifred Soanes, 95 years old, she's out and about, and she falls
On the ice.
on the ice. It breaks her hip.
Ouch.
This is in the UK. So she's lying there, obviously in a lot of pain, and she's there for 5 hours
5 hours.
before an ambulance arrives.
And her husband, Andrew.
Oh, yeah, Andrew.
92 years old.
Yeah, he was right there with her the whole time.
The whole time.
Imagine that, you're 92, your wife is 95, she's in agony, and you're just stuck there waiting, helpless.
It's heartbreaking.
It is, and it really speaks to the kind of fragility of aging.
Absolutely. And the fact that, something as simple as a fall can have such devastating consequences.
Right, and it wasn't just Andrew who was there.
Oh, right. The community.
Yeah, so these reports, they talk about how people from the neighborhood, they saw what was happening, and they just started helping. Like they propped her up with shoeboxes.
Shoeboxes.
Yeah, to try and make her more comfortable.
Wow.
And they brought blankets, hot water bottles. One woman, Jennifer Bayless, she works at a charity shop nearby, and she said, let me see if I can find the exact quote. Ah, yes, here it is. It was absolutely heartbreaking to see this elderly lady lying on the cold pavement for so long. It was freezing, and we were all so worried about her.
Oh, wow.
And David Lavelle, he was the one who actually called the ambulance. He said, it's disgusting that someone her age had to wait that long. It's a disgrace.
Yeah, I mean, you can really hear the anger and frustration in his voice.
Absolutely. So you have this incredible outpouring of compassion from the community, but it also kind of makes you wonder, like, where were the authorities? Why was this even necessary?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it's something that the Southwestern Ambulance Service has actually addressed. They've issued an apology saying that the delay was unacceptable.
Okay, but what's their explanation?
Well, they're blaming it on handover delays at the hospital.
Handover delays.
Basically, it means that ambulances get stuck at the hospital waiting to transfer patients because there's no space.
So they can't respond to new calls.
Exactly, and that creates this ripple effect of delays.
So, like a domino effect, basically. One thing leads to another.
Yeah, and it really speaks to the larger issue of strain on healthcare systems.
Right, and we hear about staff shortages and lack of beds all the time, but what does that actually look like on the ground?
So imagine a hospital as a system of interconnected parts, like a busy highway.
Okay.
Now picture a traffic jam at a critical intersection. That's the handover delay. Ambulances, representing incoming traffic, can't offload their passengers because there's nowhere for them to go. And this jam then backs up the entire system, causing delays for everyone.
So like a bottleneck.
Exactly.
But why is this happening in the first place? I mean, is it just a lack of funding?
Well, funding is definitely a major factor. When hospitals are underfunded, they have to make tough choices about staffing, resources, and even bed capacity.
Right.
But it's not just about money.
What else?
We also have an aging population with more complex health needs.
Right.
And that puts additional strain on the system.
It's like a perfect storm, isn't it?
It really is.
But let's go back to Winifred and Andrew for a moment.
Okay.
So we know she broke her hip, but what are the long-term consequences of a delay like that? Especially for someone her age.
Well, a broken hip is serious for anyone, but for an elderly person, it can be life-altering.
How so?
It often leads to reduced mobility, loss of independence, even an increased risk of complications.
Like all kind of complications?
Pneumonia, for example.
Oh, wow.
And for Andrew, having to wait out in the cold for hours likely contributed to him developing a chest infection.
And he wasn't even able to visit his wife in the hospital.
Right.
It's tragic.
It really highlights the human cost of these systemic issues.
Yeah. So to kind of sum things up, we have this shocking incident that sparked all this compassion from the community.
Right.
But it also kind of reveal these deep cracks in our healthcare system.
Definitely.
What does this all mean for us? Like, what are we supposed to take away from this?
Well, I think it challenges us to ask some hard questions.
Like what?
Are we doing enough to support our healthcare workers?
Okay.
Are our hospitals equipped to handle the needs of our population? Are we really prioritizing the well-being of our most vulnerable citizens?
And what responsibility do we have, not just as voters, taxpayers, but as human beings?
Exactly. Healthcare shouldn't just be a service.
Okay.
It should be a fundamental human right.
I like that.
And that means we need to be engaged, informed, and willing to fight for change.
Food for thought. So we've been talking about the UK here, but this isn't just a UK problem, is it?
Not at all. Healthcare systems around the world are facing similar challenges.
Right. So for everyone listening, what about where you live? What are the strengths and weaknesses of your healthcare system? And what can you do to make a difference? It's something we all need to think about.
Absolutely.